ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Inspiration, brave action, and heartwarming journeys. This is what the Louise H. Reed Show brings you. Now, here's your host, Louise H. Reed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Each week, as you know, I invite you to sit in on a conversation with a new guest where we get level. I love to bring you real people, real issues, and real conversations. And my hope is that you walk away from each show inspired and equipped to level up in your own life and leadership. If you'd like a copy of the best of notes and quotes from each show, please subscribe to my email list at louisehreed.com. Finally, I'd like to share...
Thank you.
There we go. Finally, I'd like to share my gratitude with all of you who celebrated with me on my recent collaborative book that was published last week. The one thing that changed everything, powerful stories written by women who now have it all, has reached #1 bestseller on Amazon in a number of categories, and that's because of you. So as a way of saying thanks to all of you for supporting me and my co-authors, today I'm announcing the winner of the draw to receive a free hard copy book. So the winner, drum roll, is Dana Mercer. Dana, congratulations. Thanks again for your support. Thanks to all of you who have grabbed a Kindle copy of the book. And Dana, as soon as the hard copy is available, I will get you a signed copy. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to today's amazing guest. Today we have with us Susan Greif, and Susan is an ancestral trauma and creative transformational expert, an inspirational speaker, author, and founder of Art's Mends Hearts. Susan interprets her clients' drawings to help them see their subconscious and notice where they hold their ancestral trauma. Her goal is to help clients release old, stuck energies that keep them feeling powerless, paralyzed, panicked, and in pain. And then she offers her creative strategies to help them take action and make shifts in their lives. As a daughter of Holocaust survivors, Susan specializes in working with daughters of Holocaust survivors like herself. Additionally, she works with women of domestic violence, trauma victims, and women in transition. Susan offers one-on-one coaching, couples private workshops, corporate workshops, and retreats. I could go on and on about all of the wonderfulness that Susan is, but let's just jump in to meet Susan. Susan, my new wonderful friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and I have such gratitude, and congratulations on your book. So exciting. Well, it was fabulous.
Thank you. Yes, I am pretty pumped about that, really excited, and I appreciate you sharing in that celebration with me. Susan, I want to jump right on into all sorts of interesting parts of you. We could go in so many places, but let's please start with telling us and sharing with the listeners what an ancestral trauma expert actually is.
So someone who is actually somebody who's been involved in dealing with the science of ancestral trauma and helping my clients move through the effects of what the intergenerational PTSD does. So it used to be a time in our world we thought that our DNA was our DNA and there was no way of changing, and we are who we are. There was the concept, is it nature versus nurture? And we've come to conclude lately, there's new studies called epigenetics. And through the studies, we learned that the environment can actually shift our DNA in a little bit, changes our genome, and it affects the way we react to certain things. So, for instance, because I work with daughters of Holocaust survivors, there was a trauma that our parents had gone through, the war, the environment. They had to adapt in order to survive. And the body absorbs the information from the outside, from the environment, and it kind of like teaches your body how to adapt. You become more hyper-aroused, more hypersensitive, hyper-aware, hyper-vigilant. And then that gets passed through to the next generation.
Hi, Randy.
Hold on, please.
And it's amazing, actually. It's so you're saying that the trauma can get passed down through our DNA.
Correct. So as a child of survivor, you know, my husband and I were both children of survivors, and, you know, we laugh like we have our, you know, our passports ready to leave just in case it happens again, because it's just how we were raised. It's not just the DNA that creates, right. It's like a switch that goes on and off, that may not be, that works differently than for somebody whose parents and foreparents have not been in an issue. I mean, listen, we also know there's, you know, there's the slavery, post-trauma slavery syndrome too. So it's just passed on to generations, and it's just not the DNA, it's also the way we were raised. We're raised to be like, careful, look over your shoulders, you know, don't trust, which creates people being paralyzed and not being able to move forward because they're stuck in their head with what they're supposed to be stuck with, you know, what their beliefs are, what they were taught how to raise themselves. You know, always look over your shoulders. You never know what's going to happen. And that's the trauma of it. And you know what? And the environment we live in today, it recreates the fear, you know, not just for me and my husband, let's say, but it also recreates the fear for those who were traumatized from their family, you know, their ancestral trauma, their intergenerational trauma. So I'm concerned about, you know, people now, you know, always veterans, always worry about the veterans and what happens. Mm-hmm. We worry about the families of 9/11 victims. We worry about now in the hospitals, all the essential workers, the trauma they're going through and how it's going to affect the rest of their family. So it is, you know, it's really important to figure out to calm our environment, so we can break, you know, we can break the cycle by creating a calmer environment and to challenge our beliefs and our thoughts, our cultural beliefs and thoughts.
Wow, I want to repeat that because I think that it's just so, there's a lot to this. I know that. Not trying.
I mean, that's as like, you know, simplified as I can get.
Right. But calm our environment and challenge our beliefs. I think though, even just those two things alone are huge, whether you've gone through trauma or not. Although I have to hazard a guess that most people have been through some sort of trauma, big T trauma, little T trauma. And I don't really know how to define those two things, but I've heard those expressions. I think certainly some people have been through clearly a lot more difficult situations than others. But calming our environment and challenging our beliefs, I think if it wasn't clear before nowadays, the time now, I think it's really clear that all of us need to do that.
Yes.
Traumatize, you know, dealing with trauma and living with trauma or not. I think that's a really important takeaway for others. So on the show, as you know, I really like to keep it real, and I like to say, let's get level. And I'm talking about getting level and real in our conversations. What do you want us all to get more level or get more real about in our conversations?
I think is to create awareness. And that's always, well, that's actually the second step. The first step to transformation is always the willingness. So for anybody who hops on and say, oh, I'm willing to hear what she has to say, that's step one. And the willing to, okay, you know, maybe she's right, and just giving it a try. The next step is creating awareness. And I do that through drawings. I have my clients draw pictures, I interpret them. I'm careful not to interpret them in a way where I give them answers, because, you know, we both have different perspectives. You know, you and I can look at the same thing, and like you come in from your perspective of what it is, and I come in from my perspective, like you and I can have the same dream. but it relates to our own personal life. So I find little clues in people's drawings to ask questions. And these clues lead to them expressing themselves. And usually like the first session just brings so much awareness. And then I believe in making that body-mind connection. Where do you hold it in your body? So all these pains and symptoms that you have, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, it's just a symptom of what the core root is. Why is this creating anxiety, or why can't you speak up? What are you afraid of? Why are you in the same like abusive relationships over and over again? Find the patterns in your life. So even the drawings as you go along, like you'll find patterns in the drawings and repeats. Like, you can repeat your past childhood and you'll see in the same drawing as your present, in your present life, like, oh, wow, I'm reacting the same way, or I married my dad, or, whatever it is, it's very interesting what pops up and how it affects us. And then we put and also, I also have them journal their emotions and their thoughts and the memories. So now it's like absorbed, not in memory and on paper, to reflect back, because when you reflect back, you can see the patterns, slowly change over time.
Wow. And so this obviously is what you do with art, Men's Hearts. And how did this come to be?
It's been evolving for so many years. I kind of feel like I repeat this story, but not to your audience. But truthfully, because I was a dual Holocaust survivor, there was a lot of traditions put upon me. The woman stays home, the woman shouldn't do anything, women's told what to do. And I was actually very interested in the sciences and math as a girl. It was a high school girl, and that wasn't, the normal thing for girls to do. But I went into college wanting to become a dentist because I want to go into medicine. I want to go into healing, and I was like creative and artistic with my hands. I thought this is such a great field. And I had a grandfather who I lost during the war who was a dentist, so that inspired me also. And I went and I got into, so I studied biology and psychology in college, and then I went to dental school, and I quit the day after orientation because I just got engaged. And as my parents said, like, oh, you don't have to go to school anymore. You got your husband. So, I didn't get the support I really needed, but it was, in the end, it was for the best, because within the next 8 years, I got married. I bore 4 children, and I lost both of my parents. So in my 20s was a very, very trying and traumatic time for me. And I had the support of my husband to move forward. And I'm so grateful to him, because he was, he's a great dad and very supportive husband. So, I always believe there's a reason for everything in life. I got my check back from dental school. I didn't have to pay for it. And, but being at home mom, I had my kids, my 4 children I had within 7 years. So I was busy juggling that, and I couldn't go back to work. I couldn't do work. I mean, I'd go back to work. What work was there? I was, going for dentistry. So I just, I dabbled in a lot of courses and classes. One is dance, because that was my form of exercise, which I love. I was a cheerleader in high school and college, so I love cheering people on. And and then I love that for exercise. And I did art and photography. When I was studying photography, I turned to my then 8-year-old daughter and I said, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? She says, I want to be a mommy and do nothing like you. And that was like this dagger in my heart. I was like, what do you mean I could have been a doctor? I could have, I had it. But, so, and that week, there was my temple nearby. It was going on a mission to Macedonia. There was, during the war, to a refugee camp. And I took my camera with me and I started photographing, documenting it. And the people who were on the mission with us were like reporters and so forth. Says, like, if you take any pictures, we'll publish them. So I started doing that, and I got so excited. And all of a sudden, museums and art galleries wanted to display them. And I'm like I was so happy. And I turned to my husband and said, I want to be a photojournalist. And he says, like, you got 4 kids under 8, like, where are you traveling? Where are you going? So that, again, I was like shut down. So it was like, I had written a chapter called Crossing Bridges in an anthology called Life Sparks. And I talk about all these like bridges I come to, like I'm ready to cross it to get to the other side. And I compare it to Three Billy Goats Gruff. And I'd be happy to share the link to it. I have for the PDF if anybody wants to read it.
That. Yeah.
It's about, the 3 Billy Goats Gruff. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, if your audience is.
Well, yeah, I sure am.
So there's like 3 little Billy Goats who tried to cross the bridge to get to greener pasture on the other side, but underneath the bridge there was this mean old troll who was ravenous, and every time the first Billy Goat, little youngest brother, came to the bridge and he wanted to cross, and the Billy Goat said, the troll came up, "No, I'm ravenous." And he says, "Well, if you're really hungry, let me cross. You can wait, find my brother. He's bigger than me." Again, the same brother. It's like the second brother comes, troll pops up. "I'm ravenous. I want to kill you and eat you." And she says, No, if you're really hungry, wait for my big brother. He's coming. He's bigger than me. He crosses over. The next brother comes with the horns and everything. And the troll comes up and he says, like, "No, I'm ravenous. I'm going to eat you." And the biggest brother, he just took his horns, he bopped him off into the water, and he crossed the bridge. And that realized that it was like those trolls are those negative thoughts or those people in our lives that don't allow us to move forward. And we need to figure out ways to cross our bridges to get to the greener pastures. So the crossing bridges is all about like my little mini trips that I try to cross over until I finally learn, like, I'm ready. I'm ready to make life better for me, my family, and anybody else out there who wants to go on this journey with me.
I love that. I love that analogy. And I really appreciate how you mentioned how your journey's really been evolving. And I think that's really where the magic can happen, when you allow the continuous evolution. And it's almost a bit of a patchwork quilt.
Yes, exactly.
And I think there's so much value and there's so much uniqueness in that, right? Because no one can do what you do the way that you do it because of the way that your journey has evolved. And I think it's just
exactly. And just having my 4 kids, I learned from them. I also ended up studying like yoga, meditation, breathing, energy healing, science, medical intuition. I'm studying happiness now, the happiness study, and I'm loving that. And then I went, I got certified in the creative arts therapies in the new school, when I realized like my aha moment, my joy, my happiness at midlife would be, helping others through the arts. And it evolved. First it was like, okay, let's do some drawings. And then it evolved from working with just children with learning disabilities and emotional problems. And then it went into working with women and the Georgia Holocaust survivors. When I realized, I went on the Facebook page, like everybody has such emotional baggage. I said, let's all meet, in person. And then one thing led to another, and then other women come and work with. And I also give back to my community, to the Women's Rights Center for Women with Abuse and Trauma. So,
incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Considering everything that you have been through, both you personally as well as the ancestral trauma that has been passed to you, what's the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome, and what did it teach you?
I think the biggest obstacle I overcome was to set boundaries. And stop listening to other people say, no, you can't. And I've come to realize the one boundary I've learned to use is to hold up a mirror to people, because that whatever they're saying is truly a reflection of themselves, and it has nothing to do with me. It's how they are reacting to what I say or what I do that bothers them. And they have to reflect, like, why is that bothering me? Like, what is it about her that bothers me? So it's about putting up my mirrors, not letting people say, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. I need to cross my bridge. And I've learned how to, put the mirror up to the troll.
I love it. I love that. It's actually fascinating once you start to do that kind of thing, isn't it? Because you start learning so much about other people just by listening that way. They're giving away all their secrets, and they don't even know.
Exactly.
They don't even know that they're doing it.
Right. It's like, stop personalizing it. Stop absorbing, don't put the glass up to absorb it, but put the mirror up to reflect it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And so I think success, no doubt, as your life has continued to evolve, success has probably changed for you over the years. What does it mean to you now? What does success mean to you now?
Success to me, besides having my family healthy and everybody is in tune and fine and self-sufficient, my success is really about helping one person at a time to make a transformation in their life. The more people I can help, the more successful I feel. Because I feel like we all have it in us to do it, but that inner critic is just so loud. We have to quiet it down to listen to our inner wisdom.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and if regular listeners know we talk about the inner critic a lot on the show. I have a name for mine. She's called Sally. Sorry if there's a Sally who's listening. I'm not aware. I don't know of a Sally. So if it's not you, Sally, if you're listening, it's really not you. That inner mean girl is, or inner critic, whether it's a girl or guy, whatever the voice is, the inner critic is really, really our biggest barrier, I find. Right? The biggest barrier
and we have to figure out who was the first one to tell us that. This is why we go in the past. Like, if you're always saying, I'm so stupid, I'll never do it. Who was it in your past that told you this? That keeps you from speaking up, and because you feel stupid. So you keep repeating it over and over again. I usually have this clay with me. I don't have it. It's like I roll it in a bowl and I said, here's your brain, and I'll say, take the back of a pencil and pretend this is somebody telling you you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid, until it's so deeply embedded in your brain. The only way to change a thought is to say, I'm not stupid, or whatever a positive thing is, and you dab it the other direction till it fills up and creates a new embedded information. So, may I show you a drawing of somebody who, there's so many drawings I'd love to share with you. I'm going to get to one drawing here to show you what I talk about, like somebody tells you something. Okay.
I love it.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to share this. Hold on, please.
So those who are listening, while Susan shares the screen, those who are listening, you can catch this on YouTube following the show, so you can view what it is that Susan is going to be showing us. Here we go. So can you describe to us a little bit about what we're looking at?
Okay, so I do this workshops I call Art Chi, using art to understand your chakra. Okay, and I'll explain to you why. So in this drawing, this week, this particular chakra was about the throat chakra. And I asked my audience to draw a picture of the first time you were told not to speak, because the throat chakra is about speaking, about expressing your authentic self and so forth. So this woman draws this picture, and she explains to us that she was, called to the front of the classroom as a child. And the teacher told her to teach and share her wisdom with the class. And all the kids in the class were rolling their eyes like, oh, teacher's pet, it's annoying. Like, so, and if you look at the drawing, the bottom, she's the little girl in red. The bottom of the blackboard goes right through her throat, right? It kind of disconnects the mind and the body at this point. That's a throat chakra. And she learned not to speak. And she says that she always tells her very, very smart son, don't show off. Don't tell people don't let people know how smart you are. And she'll never admit my kid is brilliant. She will never do that. So she had to actually see that this is creating it. And here's another drawing, if I may, of also another throat chakra. So this is a drawing of a daughter of Holocaust survivors. And she was explaining to us, saying that she had such migraines and she didn't know how to deal with the migraines. So I asked her to draw a picture of when was the first time you had these migraines. So she drew this picture, and that's her in bed as a little girl, and she had fear of the Nazis coming after her. And if you just look at her drawing of her pillow, When we draw pillows, usually it kind of goes like behind the back of the head. Here is cutting again through her throat.
Mm.
And her fear is not speaking. So this is a woman who has a fear of asking anything. She has a fear even asked how to, because besides her fear, her throat, her mother would tell her to be quiet every time she would ask a question. So she has this fear of speaking. So, I mean, I didn't point out the picture to either of these women, but I had them do a body-mind connection and do a body dialogue where they've come to realize, without even knowing about throat chakras or anything, they came to realize, like, I need to express myself. I need to say what I need. So, I mean, that was like an aha moment. So there's always these things. Let me see. Here's, do you want to go on or you don't?
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't want to take your time.
Oh, I just want to make a comment while you look for another one. Yeah, please show us another one if you have one. There's a couple of things I wanted to say, especially for those who are listening right now. I think it'd be really, really valuable for you to check out the video associated, like on YouTube after the show. Really powerful images that are captured here that Susan is sharing with us verbally as well and describing to us. And I also wanted to say that as someone myself who my creative abilities are not in the form of drawing, I wanted to say how I love how you do not have to be an artist. You do not have to be, not to say anything negative about the people who drew this, but the simple they are simple drawings. And so this really is something for anyone, regardless of abilities.
Yeah. The truth is, it's not about the art itself. It's about the process. I mean, I don't have this drawing, but I had one woman who I worked with. When I asked her to draw pictures of her background, she has an abusive background, she just stood there and she just blackened out the entire page. Like what came up for her, it's not about the drawing. It's about what comes up for you. And it, so that was it. Here is another woman. I feel bad because I know your audience is listening. So let me know when enough is enough.
Why don't you show us another one? You're describing them really, really well. And so let's see another one. Okay.
So another one is here, another daughter of Holocaust survivor. I'm sorry I have, because I guess these are earlier pictures. So I don't know if you can see this, but there's a picture of her little girl when she was younger in the middle. And that was her mother, her sister, and her father. So her parents were Holocaust survivors too. She's in the shower and she is like enclosed in the shower. The only place it's open is where she reaches out to her sister, and her sister's crying. Her mother has these darting eyes staring at the two of them, and the father's back to them. No hands and no feet. And he says here, I'm sorry, but I can't help you. So his father was incapable of helping them. You can see he can't do anything. He has no hands. He can't go anywhere. He's frustrated. There's like these anger marks at the wife. So we were talking about this, and I said, well, tell me about the story. She says, well, when she was a little girl, her mother never allowed her to take a shower without her observing her until she moved out of the house. I mean, way into her teen years, she had to leave the house. And her mother was like very negative. And I'm looking at the shower also because, this has been in the 50s. I didn't think they had rain showers in that regular bathrooms at the time.
Right.
And I said to her, I said, well, why are you showering with your clothes on? So it tells me because her mother would observe her and she didn't give her privacy. And I said, well, where was your mother during the war? She says, oh, she was in Auschwitz. And I said, oh, and what was her job? And that was her aha moment. It's like, oh my God, her job was to clean out the showers after all the people were, died and, were killed in the shower.
Wow.
So for her to observe her daughter, make sure she's safe, is to understand it and to empathize, to understand, and then you can forgive.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the end, we worked over a couple, so the bathrooms are always such a negative space for her, like scary. She never liked it. So she sends me this picture a couple of weeks later. She created a sanctuary in her own bathroom, like the curtains were up and flowers and soaps and stuff. So I know it's very little, but it was a movement. It was a shift in the thought process that being in the bathroom is not such a scary place anymore. It could be a sanctuary.
I think these are like, thank you so much for sharing all of these. I think that I actually think they're really significant. I feel like it's these little shifts, often in our own willingness, you said, and awareness,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
There's a shift in willingness to hear, and there's an awareness then of kind of what's going on. It's the beginning of the transformation, which then the possibilities are endless.
Yes. Once you accept it, you're more in peace with it. And then when you're in peace with it, then you can make the changes.
I love this for so many reasons. Again, you know, I do a lot of work with high achieving women and a lot of leaders. And I find that this is even the kind of work that I end up doing with them. It's the stuff they're like, okay, so how do I need to show up as a leader? What do I need to do? Tell me the steps. It's actually a lot of stuff that's underneath It's underneath the layers, like peeling back the layers.
Exactly.
I certainly don't deal with trauma. I just wanted to be clear that I don't deal with the trauma piece because I'm not an expert in that area, but it's really often these subtle things that need to get examined first before you then can do the outside stuff.
Exactly. I mean, it's trying to create a better relationship with yourself so that you can have a better relationship with others. I think it's important when you love and respect yourself, you start attracting people who love and respect you too, and you put the mirror up to people who don't.
I love that. I love that.
So,
all right. Did you want to stop sharing, or did you have more that you wanted to share on that?
I'll just share one more, and
sure.
if that's okay.
Yeah,
all right,
let's hear it.
Okay, so there's this woman that came to me, and you know, we do usually the first drawing is about your family, and she said that she was in, you know, she lost her parents a while ago, and her husband had passed away, and her kids were kind of like not close with her, and she felt very alone. She was an older woman in her 60s. She's trying to figure out life. She just feels invisible, and she was so depressed, and she was so fearful of everybody and everything. So I said, you know, draw me a picture of your family. She only had her parents. Her parents were also survivors. But I just feel bad because these are my earlier pictures that I work with other trauma people besides the
Don't feel
survivors.
bad. So, this is really interesting.
So, you know, she looks at her husband as the hero because her father is the hero. He's got the big muscles, you know, the mother was the nurturer. But she didn't draw a picture. She couldn't see herself. She said, I can't draw myself. I can't see myself. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you can't see yourself, if you are invisible to yourself, you are going to be invisible to everybody else. You need to empower yourself. So I gave her all these empowerment strategies. And then later, you know, and she also wanted to share that earlier on in life when her husband had passed, you know, before her husband had passed, this is the drawing that she had. This is her ex-husband, and these are her kids. Like, she divided them, and she still wasn't, she was in the hole. She was in the dark hole. So she was there, but you still don't see her.
Still hidden.
Yes.
Still
and
hidden.
Then finally, after a while, she started drawing pictures of her family. And like, here she is. She's here. That's her with her grandchild. Wow. And she's in Florida having a great time with her 2 kids and her grandchild. So her face is still not there. But it's like these little nuances, these little tiny shifts. Like, it's like people get so overwhelmed by the staircase, and I know it's an old metaphor, but like, take it one step at a time. It's so much easier, you know, with everything in life. There's more, but I'm not going to share anymore. I'm gonna unshare, so you can do.
Oh, that's so cool, though. This was great. I loved seeing all of these images because it really brings it to life in a whole new way, and it's also very hard to talk about art and not show us.
Right. So it's the drawing, it's the body mind connect, it's the energy work, it's the energy I use, and the meditation and the breathing and the body mind connection is very important. We need to get to the source, and body dialogue helps you figure out your next step in life.
I love it. So I know I have lots of listeners who are on their own journey, and they recognize that they're on a journey, but a quick wanting to expedite it a little bit. And I want to, I guess I just want to say, and, you know, in recognition of that, and looking at you and as using you as an example, is that sometimes it just takes time, right? The patience of you following your curiosity, and weaving together all of these experiences, certifications, studying, things that you learn along the way have woven into what it is that you
Yeah.
you know, how it is that you serve others now. I just think I think that's incredible.
Well, it's a life experience and education. And I mean that, and if we can do that daily, you know, daily meditation and education, you know, do both to help you, you know, re-educate and recreate, to re-elevate yourself, you know. And if you look at life journeys as, oh, these goals, you know, instead of mini goals, when you get to that final goal, you'll be very disappointed.
Yeah.
So life's journey is about reaching many, many goals and constantly evolving. I mean, we have to remember one of the 7 characteristics of all living organisms is adaptation.
Mm.
You know, we need to adapt, you know, even into our environment to survive, right? We need to adapt. We need to make changes. We need to shift in order to survive, whether it's physically, emotionally, or spiritually.
Oh gosh, do we have it? And is that relevant now or what?
Yes, exactly. And I think something about
Collectively.
I think the thing about this COVID thing for me and a lot of people I know is like when you're stuck at home, I think it was the time to go into your own cocoon, to reevaluate your life, to reevaluate and recreate ideas of like, okay, well, this system isn't working now.
Mm.
You know, here's my obstacle. How do I go beyond it? How can I shift it and change it so I can go beyond it? You know, I think a lot of us feel like, oh my God, my life's over. Like I'm not working. I'm not this. I'm not that. Like, you know, my family's ill during this time, you know, during the COVID time. And instead, you know, they're constantly victims of it, opposed to saying, okay, I accept the situation. I accept the environment. I accept the situation. So it's not going to work for me anymore. So how can we redo something else? Now go into your cocoon, figure it out, then learn to strengthen your wings. So by the time you're ready to come out of the cocoon, you can fly and soar. So that's what you need to do.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And I do think that one of the many things, but one of the most significant things that I've seen is fear is preventing people from being able to do that. So talk to us a little bit about advice that you'd have or guidance you'd have on overcoming or dealing with fear. Like, how have you done that?
So fear is it? I had that slide right here. I don't have to share, but it's all about the fear factor. You know, what is actually fear? Fear is false evidence appearing real, right? So it's that process. It's that thought, like, oh my God, the world is coming to an end. Oh my God, you know, I can't do it because something's gonna happen. It's the negative thinking pattern we were raised with. Right, the black and white thinking, like it's all or nothing, or you know, generalization, or any kind of negative thought process is what creates the fear. Because what else creates the fear is the unknown, the unsettling, the unknown. Like, you know, I always like to use the analysis of birthing. You know, like we're so like comfortable in the womb. It's dark, it's warm, it's cozy, you know, and all of a sudden we're starting to grow, and all of a sudden like there's no space to grow, and we're afraid like what's going to happen. I'm so uncomfortable. Wait, there's a little hole there for canal, but like I'm afraid to go in there because I don't know what's happening. So you're going in the canal because there's no room, but like you're oscillating, you know, back and forth because, you know, and then you realize, okay, if I get to the other side, but I have to work to get to the other side. So that work is labor. You have to work the labor to get to the other side. And when you finally come out of the birth canal, there is light, there is awareness, there's support, there's love. And it's the idea of, you know, getting out of your comfort zone. Comfort zone is the fear. But when you do, there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. There is definitely growth and awareness and shifting going on in your life. And I mean, I have to say the same thing. Like somebody, when I actually lost my parents, you know, somebody said that to me. It's like going through death is as similar as going through birth. Like you don't know what to expect on the other side, and you're afraid to go there. You're afraid to die because you don't know what's on the other side. But you know, you go through that process. Like you know, when people are very ill, and you kind of want to believe it's better on the other side. So, you know, you kind of like convince yourself of these things you convince yourself of the positivity, to find peace within, to accept, you know. I think it's hard to accept. Once you accept, then you can make the change, right? So that's step 3 is acceptance. 4 is making the change.
And people typically want to just start at 4, don't they?
Exactly.
Just tell me what to do. I can do it.
Okay. Put a Band-Aid on your head to relieve your headache, you know?
It's true. There's a lot of work in the work.
You know, I also use the metaphor about, you know, we can walk on the same area, you know, on the same rug every day, and like we keep tripping on the same spot every day, and you don't know why you keep tripping there, but it's only when you lift up the rug and you find there's a boulder there that you keep tripping on, and you have to actually work to move the boulder out of the way, then the carpet is flat and there's no more tripping.
Yeah. Wow. That's another good one. That's a good one.
I'm into metaphors.
I love it. Through your life experience so far, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Acceptance. Acceptance for me, for who I am. Acceptance for people the way they are, and know they're not going to change. Because then you can decide, like, is this somebody I want to be with or not? You know, whether a spouse, whether a parent, whether a friend, whether, you know, colleagues and so forth. Because when you accept, you let go of all the stuff that you hold against them. You know, and my clients who are divorced, let's say, and I say, you know, they have negative things about their husband. I said, well, what was the lesson they taught you? I said, well, they taught me, you know, that I shouldn't be with an abusive man, or or he taught me to hiking is great, whatever. So I said, well, why don't you thank them for the lesson, and now use your lesson to better yourself, right? Take life's little obstacles and make them all lessons, and what'd you learn from it? Because from these lessons you move forward. Education, remember, education. Be aware, being mindful of all these little educated things, and being mindful to the inner critic. Being mindful. Mindfulness is so important to creating awareness too.
I love all of what you just shared about acceptance. I mean, there's freedom in acceptance, isn't there?
Yes.
And peace.
Yes, acceptance and forgiveness. You know, like, it's once you accept them, you know, the lessons that you learn, then you can forgive the person and thank them for being in your life for that time period, and you needed to learn that, and you're going to keep inviting the same people into your life over and over again until you learn it, the lesson.
Until you learn the lesson. That's true. It's true. So you've talked a couple of times now about meditation. Tell us about how you use meditation in your life.
So there's the breathing technique, like just counting the breath is important for me. I do it different ways. There's passive meditation and there's active meditation. So passive meditation is more about counting my breath, being silent. Anytime a thought comes in, accept it, but then go back, focus into your breath, or body scanning meditation. There's, you know, and then there's the active meditation, and that could be through walking. That could be when you're no music, no nothing. You're just listening to your thoughts and accepting them. But drawing and journaling is so important as active meditations. I mean, of course, I think more people are more prone to write than draw, but sometimes when you draw, you'll say, why did I draw that? And you write about it. Journaling is a record of the patterns that come up over and over again. And then you can reflect back and say, oh, I need to tweak this. It's like an artist looking at their painting of the sky, and like after they painted it, they'll step back and reassess it. Like, oh, I want to put more clouds here, or I want to put sunshine here, or I want to make it a different shade of blue. And writing is like, wow, this is what I've been doing over and over again. I see it, I'm reading it, like, now how can I shift? I dream journal too. Dreaming your journal is amazing. I was actually years ago when I first started my journey before going back to school, I would dream journal, and I found the same pattern over and over again. And I would get to the airport, and and my husband was with me, and I get to the airport and I realized, like, oh my God, like, I left my suitcases at home, or I left my passport at home, and I couldn't get on the plane. And my husband's pissed. Everybody's pissed at me. Mom, like, I can't believe it's your fault. Your fault. After a while, I came to realize the suitcases at home was the excess baggage that I needed to let go of. And my passport was my own identity. And at that time, I was always, Mrs. Greif, not Susan. It was always like my husband's wife or my children's mom. And I never really found myself because, I'm supposed to be traditional, housewife and, and mother. And I'm very grateful for that time. I'm very fortunate I was able to stay home and raise my children, but I always knew there was something more that I can do in my life to help other people as well. So finally, and I started working on myself then, and I started realizing, and then I went back, that's when I went back to school. And I think in about a month or two, and like, I was loving school, like, oh my God, everything I'm learning, everything I experienced in life, everything I've learned in life is funneling into this course. And I was finally amongst other creatives like myself. Like, oh, they get me. It's like, my husband's like, logical, very right, very right brain. And, so like, it just, he didn't get it. So, but that's okay. That's what makes us different. And that's what balances our children. Right. And that's why we're still married. But, so, and then after a while, like, I started making these changes in my life. And then one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this dream that I actually got on the airplane and it soared. That was such an aha moment for me that I can change. And that dream came back. The dream of me having my baggage at home came back a couple of years later when I was like going through a lull, and like, oh, okay, no, not happening.
Pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Pretty powerful. What does it mean if someone, and I'm just asking for a friend, doesn't mean if someone doesn't remember their dreams? Like, I don't remember any of my dreams.
Okay, so no, it means that you don't want to remember your dreams. If you put it out after a while,
does it?
Yeah, usually could be, because I always had a journal right next to my bed. And I would meditate in the first few days, every night I would meditate to, like, I want to remember my dreams. And then, like, if I wake up in the middle of the night, instead of just going right back to sleep, I would write down my dreams. Or first thing in the morning, like, like if I had to go to the bathroom even, I would take my notebook with me and write it while I'm there. And then I would ask questions like, why? Why was this person in my dream? Or why was I in this area? Or why, and I also have a, book on symbolism, right? So you can Google that now. Everybody has Google your dream, and like, why is there, like, an owl in my dream? Like, why did my teeth fall out? There's all these.
I did used to have that. I used to have those a long time ago. My teeth used to fall out. And I also had a repeating dream about quicksand.
Right. Sometimes you feel like you're being stuck, right? You're being pulled down, way down. It's a spiraling effect, and and you can't get out. You're stuck, right? And that's
all right, Susan.
quicksand.
I'm gonna meditate on this about remembering my dream, and I will let you know. And anyone else who may be interested about this, I'd love to hear. I'm sure Susan would love to hear as well.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your patterns, what comes up, because everything has a meaning, I remember having the dream about my teeth falling out. I had 4 teeth in my mouth. One tooth fell out. The other tooth fell out. The other one was like dangling, and then the other one was stuck in there. And I came to realize, like, I had 2 kids in college. My 3rd kid was about to go to college, and my youngest one was still home. So I'm like, whoa, that's like,
wow.
Losing teeth is about losing part of you, right?
Oh gosh. I can't even remember that because that was when I was a kid when I was losing teeth. And it's been a long time, but let me see what I can start to remember because I find this stuff extremely fascinating. So we're getting close to the top of the hour. Are you good for some rapid fire questions?
Yes, I'm scared. Yes, go for it.
Okay.
Facing my fears. I'm going to face my fears with you.
Okay, let's do this. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Trust your inner gut. Believe in yourself, and don't let what people say affect you. Because, you know, my daughter always says, stop saying it is what it is, because I said, that's it. You have to sometimes surrender to it is what it is so that you can accept the situation and make the change.
I like that. What does the world need more of?
Love. And I mean, I know it's a cliche, but it needs love. It needs communication. It needs to open up dialogue. I'm actually working with another woman who's a daughter of German World War II. And so she and I, we have this ancestral trauma, and we're trying to heal and open up dialogue, cross-cultural dialogue of the preconceived, belief system. So it's about opening up dialogue and listening to each other.
Do you have a go-to book or podcast that you could recommend to my listeners?
I don't know. There's your podcast. So
here we go. Of course. Other than that, and other than the book that just came out that I have.
You know what? Truthfully, I'm always listening to so many people. I mean, I love Brene Brown, and I love Mel Robbins. I like she does that. There's so many. It really depends. There's one of my favorite TED Talk is by Sir Kenneth Robinson. It's about changing the education paradigm. And I think that is so important to understand, the education system here in America and how it's been created. And it leaves out the creatives in the process.
It teaches creativity out of our children.
Yes. So, and for those children who are suffering from learning disabilities like dyslexia, they need to learn through the right brain, because the left brain is language brain. And if they can't, dyslexic, they can't read and write well, they need to use the emotions and sense all the senses in order to learn.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then my last question for you, my tagline is be brave, be bold, be happy. What does being brave, bold, and happy mean to you?
I think it's also, again, get out of your comfort zone. Say what you need to say, even though people tell you not to say it. Don't be afraid. And when you find your authentic voice and find what your purpose and meaning in life is, you are surely going to be happy.
I love that. My final question, I said that the other one was going to be a final question. That's it for the rapid fire. How can people reach you? How would people find you? How could people work with you? Where would people go? Give us all those connection details.
So my website is artmendshearts.com. My email is artmendshearts@gmail.com. That's easy enough. You can reach me either way, and they can subscribe to my newsletters. You can follow me on Facebook and all my social media. Either my personal Facebook page is Susan Horn Greif. That's Greif, not Greif, even though it helps.
Sorry, and I said
it's okay, but you know what? I'm so used to it. But it actually is a positive thing, because people think, oh, I work with Greif, so it kind of works for me. Or my Art Men's Hearts, all my social media is Art Men's Hearts. So yeah, I'd love to work. I do one-on-one. I can work in a group. I do corporations. I do organizations. I do workshops at retreats as well. So and parent-child, communication stuff, business communication, couples. It's all about creating communication and for self-expression.
I love it. I love it all. I'll have all of those connection points in the show notes. So if you're listening and want to reach out to Susan, please check out the show notes in the podcast episode and reach out. And I'd love to hear what you thought of the show, as always. Susan, Thank you so much for all of what you shared with us today and for sharing your time.
Thank you so much for inviting me again. I appreciate it. We had a great hour. Thank you so much.
We certainly did. And thank you to all of you, of course, my Lady Boss listeners, for tuning into today's show. And I invite you to contact me directly at louisehreed.com if you have any questions or want to talk about coaching, speaking engagements, or leadership consulting. Let's all live inspired, grow together, and be brave, be bold, and be happy. Until next week, I'm Louise H. Reed, wishing all of you an amazing day. Goodbye, my friends.